Welcome to Tesla Info, and today we're going to talk about the much debated topic of should you display miles or kilometers or percentage in your car. Why do you think it's important? Well, here's an example. Someone's posted a question, they've bought their car and it's displaying a range of 273 miles and not the 305 they expected. And the first answer is, have you ever got the quoted miles out of an ICE car? Interestingly enough, that is completely the wrong reason for getting 273 miles, which we'll come to later. Other comments in the post suggest that the mileage is just a guess, change to percentage and win at life, which doesn't really answer the question at all. And then a couple of people fight back and say, well, you know what? I drive miles, I don't drive percents. This is a little graphic that shows what road signs would look like if we did drive percents, because a percentage in a Tesla varies depending on which car you're driving. Another misconception is people say your petrol car never told you how far it would go. It used to tell you whether you were half full, 3/4 full. Well, that's not true. Most modern cars have a range or a distance before you need to fill up. However, these nearly always adapt to your driving style, which is not the case with Tesla. Okay, let's have a look at the two main options in a Tesla and describe what you're actually seeing. So the first one is the percentage, which is also actually reflected in how far the battery is filled in. So the first thing to understand is that Tesla have actually used quite a lot of different size batteries for seemingly the same models. So if we look here, the Model 3 has had 4 different batteries for the standard range or rear wheel drive and 4 different batteries for the long range or performance models across the world. Now the sizes don't differ that much, but if you look at the long range model, which is what we're going to focus on, in fact we're going to focus on a Model 3 long range, you can see that actually there's about a 6 kilowatt difference. The second issue that can happen is the batteries degrade. So over time you will lose the amount of capacity those batteries have. So you can see here that some batteries can be nearly 80 kilowatts down to, after only 20 or 30,000 miles, they can be as low as 60. If we look at the figures though, we can see even at the similar mileage there could easily be a 10 kilowatt hour spread between the best and the worst batteries. When you show percentage, you are seeing the percentage of the actual degraded battery capacity. So as the battery degrades, you do not see that a percentage is getting effectively smaller in terms of energy. The alternative is to display miles. Now mileage is calculated differently. When Tesla tests the cars, they have to do it against a recognized testing standard, and this is where it can get quite complicated. In America they use EPA, and in Europe and other parts of the world they use WLTP, and they can generate different results. Other than some early Model S and Model X, all Teslas effectively use the EPA rating in the car. And what the EPA rating does is effectively gives you a efficiency, or how many miles the car is expected to do for a given unit of energy. So putting those things together, the car knows what the maximum amount of storage the battery can do, including knocking off any degradation that's occurred. It knows how full the battery is, and it also knows the efficiency. So by taking those things, it knows the amount of energy in the battery divided by the efficiency, and it can give you a number of miles. That's what you see. Why people don't like it is that, especially with colder temperatures, the car doesn't achieve the rated efficiency. And here we can see it's as low as 65% in freezing conditions and a maximum of 90% in sort of 20-30 degree temperatures. So, but most of the time it's between 70 and 90% of the rated efficiency. But either way, when the car says it can do 100 miles, in reality it's doing between 65 and 90 miles in the real world. And that's why some people don't like showing mileage. Okay, so let's try and summarize the pros and cons for each. So first of all, percentage. Generally it's actually quite simple. It's not telling you something that's not untrue as such, but it's not actually that accurate either. People say that they know how far they can do for 20%, but we know efficiency changes depending on temperature. So actually there isn't a fixed amount of miles you can do for even a percentage. It also differs between models because a percentage of a battery will vary depending on the efficiency of the car and the size of the battery. So coming out of a long range Model 3 and getting in a loan car 75D Model X, you'll get a very different amount of miles for a given percentage. It also ignores degradation completely. So if you had the problems that, say, the Model S85 batteries had a few years ago, where their degradation was pretty significant after a software update, you'd actually have no idea other than the fact the car was not doing the mileage you expected. And the final one really is that distance is not measured in percentages, as our comical chart showed earlier. Now, miles is slightly different. It is actually an accurate reflection of the energy stored in the battery, albeit using an unusual unit of measurement in miles. Miles is actually how distance is measured. So if you're going on 20 miles, it's 20 miles. It's not a percentage. And it's consistent between models because it's adapted both for the amount of real energy in the battery and the efficiency of that model. So 50 miles in a Model 3 long range is actually the same as 50 miles in a Model X 75D. Where it falls down is the fact that the real world range is not reflected in the mileage, and in generally you're getting between, as we said earlier, 10 and 30% less than it says. Now, we're not going to tell you which you should display. What we do think is important that you understand the difference between the two. Percentages, where some people are adamant that it is a more accurate measure, actually has the same efficiency issue as mileage. You cannot draw a conclusion and say, I know 1% does me 2 miles. That is a falsehood. That said, a lot of people don't really want to be doing maths in their heads and say the car says it's got 180 miles to go, and they've just got 190 miles of range, trying to work out whether it can achieve it by knocking off 10 or 15%. Both of these systems, you need to be doing maths in your heads to work out the real range, and actually Tesla give you an energy screen which solves both those problems. So in some ways, it's irrelevant whether you show percentage or miles, and it's certainly not worth preaching to people that want to show miles to say percent or vice versa. Not that it matters, we show miles. Okay, so back to the original question. Why does my car show 273 miles rather than the 305 miles quoted on the website? Well, this comes back to the fact that the 305 miles quoted is using the WLTP standard, and the car will use the EPA standard, which is gives a lower efficiency in the car, and Teslas will use the EPA rating, and presumably the poster is in a country that uses WLTP. There is nothing wrong with the car at all. So anyway, if you like our content, please subscribe, like the channel, ring the bell, you know the score, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.